Hi, I'm Chris, also known as Harm, and what I'm going to talk about on this little series, possibly, of videos is wheels. There seems to be so much out there for people to learn. It can be really intimidating, and I see a lot of people that have been skating for a long time and they're like, oh, I don't want to know, it's, math and science and it's hard, I don't like it. But it's actually a lot simpler than a lot of people will give it credit for. It's also very good for new skaters. This is going to be a lot of things. It's basically a collection of all the things that people have told me and that I've had to go out on the internet to manufacturer websites and different derby websites and kind of gather up all this information. So I'm putting it in one place so that those some of the newer people, you'll have that resource very early and make things much easier than it was for me. So we're going to start off very simply, and this first section is going to be the most simple. This is very subjective things. These are basically just measurements of the wheel. So this is nothing to be afraid of. We're going to start off in the kiddie end, nice and shallow. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is height. And height is the simplest thing because it varies so little between skates, between skate wheels. So what I'm talking about when I say height is simply from the bottom of the wheel to the top, and it's measured in millimeters. So I have this little guy back here. There are three numbers that you'll see when you're talking about skates or skate wheels. So the first one that we're talking about is this guy. So it ranges from about the shortest wheel you see is 59, and most wheels, maybe 95% of wheels out there, are 62s. So that makes this really easy. It's nothing more than the top to the bottom, and it's measured in millimeters because most of the world uses millimeters and not the weird system we use. So if you see anywhere, if you see 59 or 62, you can bet that that is the height of the wheel, because these are the ranges of the other two numbers that you'll see. And you'll see that neither one of them are in that range. So it makes it very simple. None of these cloud with each other, none of these overlap. So it makes it fairly simple. If you see that, then you know that it's the height of the wheel. Now, the difference between the 52s, or 59s and 62s, it's very small. You might notice a difference. If this is a new skater, I wouldn't worry about it. I would stick with the 62s until your skill level is a little bit higher. At which point I would say try to find some wheels to borrow and see if you like them. And they'll make you feel like you turn a little bit quicker. They may make you feel a little more agile, but they're probably not going to do that until you've been around a little while. If it's your first year, I would say just stick with the 62s. Don't get anything fancy. Stick with simple. Simple is always good. So that's the first thing. And that was easy, right? So the second thing is only slightly more complicated because it varies a little bit more. So the second thing is this number, which is the width. And when I'm talking about width, I'm talking about looking at the wheel. If you were looking at a skate forward from side to side, it's also measured in millimeters. They vary a little bit more than height does. The wide wheels that you see, those are 44s usually. There are some 40s. These are 38s. And this guy's a 36. And you can see how much they vary is a tiny bit. 2 millimeters difference, 38, 36. So the differences are pretty minimal for these guys. I definitely do notice these narrower ones, they do feel a little bit funny at first, but you get used to them. Most newer skates, the beginner skates especially, a lot of times they'll come with 44s, and they are wider than these wheels. I think it's a confidence thing, because I don't think they're particularly more stable. In actual fact, I don't think it makes you skate better or you fall down less. But when you look down at your skates and you see that little bit extra wheel, it makes you feel like you're more stable, I think. Because I know I did change from 44s to 38s, and I didn't really notice it. At first it felt kind of funny, but the reason that you would pick the narrower wheels over the wider wheels is when you look at a skate and you can see how much the wheels poke out. The 38s, you can't see much wheel there, and that means you're going to kick other people's wheels less. You're going to tend to lock wheels less. It's going to make you feel possibly a little more nimble. They are lighter since there's less of the wheel, but when you're new, again, when you're new for your first year, don't make a lot of big changes. Stick with whatever you have, and if you have a 44, stick with them for a while, learn how to skate well so that you can make the better use of them. Don't run out and buy another set of wheels very quickly. You'll find that it's not particularly as useful as you might think. And every time you make a big change in your wheels, it kind of brings you back to the beginning, and you have to relearn how to skate again. You have to relearn a lot of this stuff. So I would say stick to, as long as they're not absolute, really super cheap, bad wheels. And for that you'll have to ask around. Like if you have those skates that come with, I think the Radar Caymans, those really super cheap wheels, it might be worth upgrading soon, but that's something a coach can help you with. But certainly, if you spent a decent amount on your skates, your first pair, if you spent around $250 for sure, whatever wheels you have are probably okay. We'll get into the hardness in the next video, and that'll make a huge difference on what you skate, where you skate it at, the floor, what kind of floor it is, your weight. There's a lot of things that can figure into it. But at first, honestly, if you're in your first 6 months, stick with whatever you have and learn as much as you can as far as skill, and that'll serve you a lot better than spending a lot of money and figuring out that you still need to learn how to skate. So another thing I want to talk about really quickly, just to get it out of the way, there is a few other things that I'm probably not going to talk about later, like hubs. Honestly, this goes into the same category of, if you're in your first year, don't worry about it a whole lot. There are a lot of different hubs. There are a lot of these guys that they're either hollow or they're somewhat solid. There are spoked wheels. You'll see the plastic spokes. There are metal wheels. Again, none of those are going to make a particularly huge difference in your first year. So again, stick with whatever you have. Once you get to the point to where you can notice the difference, metal wheels will they'll roll more, or roll, I should say, easier. The term is more, it'll have more roll, but what they actually mean is it tends to roll more. You stop skating and you'll tend to keep rolling on the same, if all else is the same. It's kind of hard to describe until I get to some of the later stuff, but again, I would say, the metal wheels may be something you'll like eventually. If you're new, don't worry about it, because honestly, the cores and the hubs that they have now, a lot of these guys are so stiff that I don't think a lot of people are going to notice the difference. I'm sure there are some people that are like, oh, this is the greatest thing in the world. But I think you have to be pretty good before you definitely feel the difference. So as far as wheels, the simple stuff, that's most of what you need to know. The next video, I think I'm going to talk about wheel hardness. Some of the other things, try not to pay attention too much to gimmicks. Their manufacturers throw out a lot of new stuff, because wheels are, in a sense, just round things you roll on. And granted, there may be differences in technology, but a really good skater is going to skate really well regardless what you put on their feet. So skill is much more important. You'll notice that they come in a huge variety of colors. It's not the color that changes anything about the wheel. That's nothing more than the dye that they put it in. And if you notice, they're mostly bright colors, and that is to attract the shopper. That's to try to attract the people that are buying them. It's not so much, it has nothing to do with how well the wheel works. I would say stick with a good brand. You can spend a lot of money on wheels very quickly. I do tend to buy like all the similar brand wheels. Like I have Atom wheels mostly, and have them in a bunch of ranges of hardness. So I have everything from the 98 to 95 to the 93s, and that's so that I can skate on a lot of different floors, and I can set my wheels up so that they feel exactly the same regardless on what kind of floor I'm on. I mean, there's always going to be some difference, but do think of things like that when you're starting to think about your next set of wheels. Like, do you need a whole new set of wheels, or maybe you can mix in 4 wheels that will change how you skate on those particular ones. And that's easier to do if you have all of the similar brand wheels. Like there's, if you stick with a good one, you know, Atom is the one I like. There's also, I have Heartless, which are the super narrow ones. They do make wider wheels as well. Their Radar makes some good wheels, they make some okay wheels, but there's a lot of range out there, and definitely the best way that I can recommend that you find that is to borrow wheels. Like pretty much almost everybody I know has at least one set laying around somewhere that they didn't like. Well, if you borrow them, you may like them, or you may at least rule out another wheel that you don't like. So I highly recommend, whenever you can, loan your extra wheels out to people and trade them. Try to find people that are willing to do that for you, because it's so much better to do that than to spend $100 to find out you hate your wheels and you have to sell them and never get what you paid for them. So I think that's all I'll talk about for this one. It's pretty simple. I want to start things off nice and non-threatening. In the next video I'm going to talk about hardness and friction, and what that third little guy right here is. So I think that's it for this time.